It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here this morning, as always.
Thank you.
Appreciated. You know, getting into something else that isn't discussed enough in the campaign, and it really should be, but I mean, I guess there's other issues that Americans care about, and then you can push this one, but Just the News had this. Organizations that manage, coordinate, and monitor electricity service for 156 million Americans across 30 states are warning the Biden-Harris administration that their power plant rule will be catastrophic for the nation's grid. Who's been telling you that for the longest time?
Yep, easy to see.
4 regional trade organizations, as they're called, recently filed a brief, also known as a friend of a court brief, in support of a multi-state lawsuit against the EPA over the rule. The EPA released the rules in April. They require coal-fired power plants that will be operating past 2039 to begin implementing carbon capture technologies in just 8 years. New gas-fired power plants will also need to add the technologies, with those operating 40% of their annual capacity or more, to add carbon capture starting in 2032. Isaac Orr and Mitch Rolling, co-founder and researchers with the Always on Energy Research, performed an analysis on behalf of the North Dakota Transmission Authority on the impact that the rules would have on the Mid-Continent Independent Systems Operator, a regional regional trade organization that covers a large portion of the center of the U.S. The researchers said they found a number of problems. The EPA grossly overestimated the ability of intermittent wind and solar to deliver reliable electricity during peak demand periods. According to the analysis, it also found the agency didn't perform any reliability analysis on the rules. The result would be blackouts lasting days in some cases, according to the new research.
Mm-hmm.
Duh.
Yeah, it's what happens.
The brief points out these same problems. It argues that the EPA's timeline is too short. The requirements for compliance assume feasibility of carbon capture technology that has not yet been adequately demonstrated. The RTOs explain, and the rules would result in vast retirements of coal-fired power plants while preventing investments in baseload generators such as natural gas-fired power plants to replace the lost capacity. This is part of the huge insanity of the Biden administration.
Yeah.
And every Democrat listening right now knows it. This is insane. It's absolutely insane.
Yep. Well, and you know, this analysis, they overestimated the amount of power that wind and solar could provide. No, they didn't. They lied about it. Because if it's not done based on, again, the historic performance of those sources of energy, if you're expanding numbers, if you're inflating numbers, you're lying. That's not overestimating. That's a lie. That's deliberately telling people something that is not true.
The electric grid operators also noted that the EPA performed no reliability operation assessments. Baseload generation refers to the minimum level of constant power supply that a utility or power grid must produce to meet the continuous and consistent demand of electricity. It would be disastrous, absolutely devastating for the grid, the one researcher, Rolling, told Just the News. Rolling and Orr reached out to several regulatory attorneys, and none of them were aware of another situation in which the RTOs filed a brief asking the court to remand regulations back to the agency. The fact that RTOs intervened in the case suggests that they are especially concerned about the rules. Supporters of the rules, such as the National Resources Defense Council, argue rules are necessary to achieve net zero by 2050. They're nuts.
Yeah.
They're absolutely nuts.
Well, not only that, but remember, net zero is not zero with the activists. The activists are already now light years beyond what even the mandates, the EPA mandates that are in place now are. Think about that. Well, we're going to be net zero by, and activists are going, well, no. If you were net zero now, net zero is not zero. And the reason we bring that up, it's the activists that start the chanting and start helping build this political will and moving all of this. This is the way it's always happened. So you're not going to, it doesn't, the whole net zero thing is garbage to begin with. But even if you could claim you were there now, the activists are already saying it's not enough.
Well, yeah, I mean, that comes along with Jew hating now with, what's her name? Greta.
Right, exactly.
She doesn't believe net zero.
Yeah, net zero is not zero.
Yeah,
that's their new chant.
Zero and anti-Semite. That's what goes together now.
Exactly.
Because now apparently that has to do with saving the world to Greta. My God. I mean, these people treating the evil that they have in their hearts. The criticisms of the EPA's rules that they've received suggest the goal is not achievable without serious threats to the reliability of the nation's grid. Net zero means cutting carbon emissions to a small amount of residual emissions that can be absorbed and durably stored by nature and other carbon dioxide removal measures, leaving zero in the atmosphere. That's planting trees is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, Rowling said that many grid engineers and planners, I told you this, we said this, the electricians and engineers know.
Right.
Said many grid engineers and planners know that eliminating thermal units, coal and gas-fired power plants, on the time scale that achieving net zero by 2050 would result in frequent and lasting blackouts.
Yeah.
He said, however, think about this. However, there's a reluctance to be too vocal about it. So we're heading to energy, economic, and national security suicide by not having the proper grid in place. And people are afraid and reluctant to be too vocal about it. The industries that contribute to the U.S. electricity supply are interconnected, and there's pressure to maintain harmony and cooperation to not rock the not rock the boat, so to speak, which is a feature of many industries and organizations.
Yeah.
So they just don't say things out in the open, and maybe they should. Well, we all know it already.
Well, here's the thing. If you don't, then you're part of the problem, because we'll get to, it won't be rolling brownouts or even rolling blackouts. As mentioned here, it'll be blackouts for days at a time.
Yep.
And what do you do then? Liberals don't care about a crisis. In fact, they embrace it at every turn. We just came out of COVID. We saw how they handled all of that.
Well, you see up in New York where a lot of people are getting the smart meters, and their electricity rates are going up.
Right.
And they're all complaining like crazy, and a significant portion are liberal. It's like, what the hell did you expect?
Right. Well, because, and then on top of that, the technology that, the mandates will come along. Well, we need control of your thermostat in your home.
I'm not trying to insult, but do liberals understand any concept of cause and effect?
Well,
do they ever
or
think
do you
it?
just blindly buy into this, the world is going to end thing? That the liberals in power have been pushing for ages now. Well, climate change. In 1989, if you work in inside the Beltway, by the year 2000, you'll have to take a gondola to work. I know of very few people.
Maybe by 2013.
Mm-hmm.
All the ice will be gone.
Yeah.
That was Al Gore.
Mm-hmm.
By 2013, all the ice will be gone.
And I only know 3 people who take a gondola to work. None of them are in D.C.
Well, as we have said, with all the false predictions of apocalypse that have not come to fruition, when is it okay? I mean, for us, it's any time to stand up and say, if you're wrong on every catastrophic position that you've had, the sense of urgency to do something because it's going to destroy mankind, the polar ice caps will melt by 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Gondolas in Washington, D.C. Obama won't be able to build his house. Oh, okay. He built it anyway.
Yeah, of course.
On the Atlantic. Well, none of it has happened. Not one of the catastrophic predictions of climate change, global warming have come true. Not one.
No.
When is it okay to question it? Or, because that's the thing that they're trying to get you to move on, you'll move and you'll vote because the Earth's going to be destroyed or this is going to happen. Well, none of these things are happening.
Yeah.
And you keep promoting, let's come up with a new one. Let's come up with a new one. At what point is a citizen of the United States supposed to say, wait a minute, you've been wrong about everything. Why should I believe you now?
Well, because at the point where we're having blackouts for days at a time, it'll be too late. The infrastructure will already be changed.
Oh, yeah.
The Obama administration said this about coal. In fact, after they lost in court on one of the coal measures, someone asked the Obama administration, I forget who the member was. I don't know if it was a cabinet member or a spokesperson, but do you feel defeated having lost in court? Well, no, because these industries already paid billions to retrofit, and they're not going to pay the billions to go back to the old way of doing things. So, no, we won. We lost here in court, but they're not about to undo what we made them do.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howes Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Agriculture Department economists are predicting that this year the foods we buy at the grocery store will only go up in price by an average of 1.1%. However,
food away from home or restaurant prices are predicted to increase by 4.1%.
USDA economist Megan Schweitzer says that's not because restaurants are paying a lot more for the foods that they're serving to us, but they are paying a lot more for the people who provide services at the restaurant, the folks who prepare the food or who clean up after we leave. She says restaurants are more than food providers, more than sellers of goods. They're part of the service economy. And on that score,
across the economy, we're seeing that prices for services are up by about 5% over the past year, where prices for goods have dropped over the past year by about 2%.
And that's one reason why the cost of eating out is rising so much faster than food prices at the supermarket. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Coming up following the bottom of the hour, our audio cut today, and it's a good one. I do want to play this, so we haven't played any Scott Jennings from over the weekend. All right, you ready for this on CNN?
All right.
Here we go. All right.
Well, first of all, I don't find them to be consequential. Second of all, Walz is a buffoon. I'm sorry. This guy, he's the only school teacher in America who brags that none of his students can get into an Ivy League school. He's had one consequential press interaction with our Dana Bash, who asked him about the fabrications in his own resume, and his answer was essentially, me no understand words good. I mean, he's a buffoon. He's on a free ride for running under Harris. He gets very little press. They don't let him talk to the press for a reason. I want one thing out of this debate. I want J.D. Vance to go out there and get under his skin. He has legendary hot, short temper. A lot of governors do, but apparently he does. I want J.D. Vance to go out there and have him explain why he is denigrating J.D. Vance's story. Small-town America ends up making something better out of his life, which is something we should want for every kid.
Well, that was the one thing that we just that was mind-boggling. It's like, well, okay, so you're talking about a guy who came from nothing and went to an Ivy League school, and you're insulting him for that. Remember the one rally he was doing that? We're like, we don't get that one. You better move on because I don't know how that one's effective.
I don't think anything look at all the tactics they've tried to use since bringing Tim Walz, basically since the convention, bring Tim Walz on board. Starting with the whole J.D. Vance is weird. And then they showed all the videos of Tim Walz walking into a crowd. And J.D. Vance is the weird one.
And then his wife speaking.
Yeah.
Walz, I'm talking about.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
I mean,
that was bizarre.
Well, but here's the thing. When you can't talk on the issues and your nominee doesn't have the confidence to go out there, you're left with all these bizarre things. They're trying, it's really weird. It's really...
Yeah, it is. It's really weird. I mean, this is, hey, a full 35 years this week.
Congratulations.
in talk radio. I've never seen a campaign like this before. I've never. I mean, nothing.
No, it's never. It's because nobody would ever direct a campaign to do this.
Let's hear from Scott Jennings. This is about her going to the border on Friday.
There'll be no love for me or Republicans for Kamala Harris today. In fact, I think the Trump campaign line today ought to be arsonist returns to scene of crime. I mean, look at the last 3.5 years. We've got the border has effectively been open, people flowing across. ICE today released information that there are 13,000 non-citizens convicted of homicide and almost 16,000 non-citizens convicted of some kind of sexual crime who are in the country right now. Only because we're in the shadow of an election is Kamala Harris trying to rush and pay some lip service to this issue as a tactical matter. Anderson, I don't think Harris should be trying to elevate this issue because this is the best ground from which Donald Trump has to fight. So, no, I think the Harris campaign is making a tactical mistake, and I think they have very little to say that the American people are going to buy on this today.
Yeah.
To me, they were so into it. They all had invested in open borders.
Yeah.
To the point where they embraced it, where if you weren't for it, then you're a racist.
Mm-hmm.
So for her to try to back off now, you just highlight what her position was. And since she will not take questions from reporters in a press conference kind of style where they could have follow-up questions for it, people don't believe her. Why? Because most people believe that if you believe something strongly, you're going to go out and promote it. They can't understand. The media is trying to make all sorts of excuses. We played one earlier, which was just where Martha Raddatz, where you had the host the guest Jonathan Martin say, well, she's not doing it because she's not good at it, and she's good at doing debates, but she's not good at this. And then Martha Raddatz was like, "Well, and can you believe that the Trump campaign is attacking her for this?
They're using it against her."
I mean, it was just bizarre. I mean,
it's and because they have no way to defend her. It's right now they're desperate.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric Crony, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, one of the things we've said for the longest time is really the first thing that the left wanted to get rid of was the First Amendment. Yeah. And we go all the way back to McCain-Feingold for that one, which goes back to 1999. And we don't include John McCain as being a Republican because he agreed with doing that. You now have people that Americans consider conservative on the Republican side, like Josh Hawley, that also believes, well, groups should be able to speak, but not corporations. It's reprehensible to me. And I like Josh Hawley. I think he makes great arguments about so many things. You ever see him question in Congress? But a couple things he's just so far off on. Anybody who tries to limit freedom of speech, I'm against.
Yep.
I'm against and passionately against those who wish to restrict freedom of speech. But as we know, it's really been pushed by Democrats. And I remember I've told the story before when I worked at our great affiliate KXL. And I don't think I had him on as a guest. I think it was Lars Larson, who so well known on the West Coast, great talk show host. And I used to stay over on his show, and I think he's the one that had Russ Feingold on. And this was the time when they were discussing it. This was the discussion of McCain-Feingold.
Yeah.
And I asked him, you know, where, because we got really through very, very fast the whole point of, corporations aren't people. We got by that one real quick, you know, that stupid argument. It's like, well, no, corporations are basically a law set up by states to regulate businesses. You know, you become a corporation. It's the people in the corporation that have the free speech rights.
Right.
They're people.
Yep.
You know, so, I mean, it was the dumbest argument. And I remember I just said, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are that you, through legislation, get to regulate freedom of speech for groups? He wasn't happy with me. I'm sorry to do a Biden there, but he was not happy with me. But it drives me crazy. But here's John Kerry talking about the problem with freedom of speech. Here we go.
And I think the dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today. You can't, there's no, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact have kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. And people self-select where they go for their news or for their information. And
by the way, that's a bad thing.
Yeah. He's saying that like it's a bad thing.
Right. People on their own select it.
Yeah, we don't want you out there finding the facts on your own.
Somebody needs to be providing you with the facts.
Exactly.
Where you don't question them.
We need to feed you the facts.
What a moron. Here we go.
Then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the 45, 50 years I've been involved in this. And there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change. Now, obviously, there are some people in our country who are prepared to implement change in other ways, and
so
that's
you're
really
questioning
dangerous.
really if democracy can survive unregulated social media.
I think democracies are very challenged right now and have not proven they can move fast enough or big enough to deal with the challenges that we are facing. And to me, that is part of what this race, this election is all about. Will we break the fever?
So he's all in favor of the censorship that was lies in 2020.
Yeah, well, he just told you that the First Amendment gets in his way, that we need to be able to make fast, big moves. They really thought they had won the world with Obama becoming president and then the advent following that of social media and being able to control the narrative through social media. Hey, we'll shut you out of existence. We'll cancel your Google. You don't want your Google canceled, do you? We will get you off. We'll kick you off of Facebook. You won't be on. You'll be an embarrassment to your family. We will take your ability to convey your thoughts away completely. He's talking about, again, what liberals have wanted to do: punish free speech, that pesky First Amendment. He said it. He just said it.
Well, it's funny because reading Andrew Studiford from National Review, because when he said people are anguishing over social media, he writes here, who I wonder dislikes and feels anguish over social media. Most people who view social media content do so with a healthy degree of skepticism. But the dislike and the anguish is, for the most part, felt by the members of the ruling establishment who used to enjoy almost a monopoly over information. Or as Kerry calls them, referees. Mm-hmm. It is hard, grumbles Kerry, to build consensus. Well, democracy was not meant to be easy.
No.
Besides, a consensus that is built on the suppression of inconvenient information is not in any real sense a consensus. This means it may be proved fragile, destabilizing, and lacking serious challenges, and turn out to be profoundly misguided. The story of the race to net zero, as it happens, proving to be a good example of just how this works. Kerry's lament about people choosing for themselves where they go for their news and information is implicitly a call for muzzled media. Mm-hmm. It also reflects a revealing contempt for those who are not John Kerry and his ilk. We are supposed to believe that they are too dumb or too gullible to be allowed to search out information for themselves. This is, again, where Democrats believe that the people that vote for them or should vote for them are idiots and should remain idiots under the control of the all-knowing John Kerry.
Right.
He is one who particularly carries an aura of arrogance that he is intelligent, and he isn't.
No, and also that his arrogance really is it's very apparent. He feels like he's above all of you. He can't be expected to fly commercial like all of you ketchup eaters.
As he writes here in the National Review, the essence of social media, of course, is that they are channels for many competing sources of information. Besides that, to condemn the First Amendment is a major block to hammering out a competing source of information is disturbingly authoritarian. Yes, Kerry may think that a source is sick, has an agenda, and he doesn't, and is putting out what he considers to be disinformation, but a legal system that would allow him and those who agree with him to hammer it out of existence is far sicker. But understand, this is the legal system that John Kerry and many other liberals want.
Yep.
They hate the First Amendment. They hate. And we started saying this a couple of years ago, and we were still getting the calls where you can't win an election because the mainstream media won't promote it. And we said, no, that's changing. And now you really don't, it doesn't matter whether they cover something or not.
Right.
And the reason is the internet.
Yeah, we can find it. We can find the truth. We are the fact checkers. You just have to be willing to find it.
The fact that, Kerry is saying we can't build a consensus quick enough. So get rid of the First Amendment. We need to move faster on these ideas. We've been able to move very, very quick on economic ideas that has got us into $1.2 trillion in interest on the debt, which I believe we will find out today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because the fiscal year ends tomorrow. Today.
Yeah.
Today, the fiscal year ends. So we're going to know what it is. And the estimate was $1.2 trillion in just interest on the debt. As I said, you know what consensus has brought us? Economically speaking, or budget-wise speaking, where we now as a society is okay with doing one of the most evil things out there, and that is taxation without representation.
Mm-hmm.
What this country was found on, but we found the loophole. Just borrow so much that we put the burden on future generations and we never ask them.
Right. Yep.
And we're okay with it as long as we get our stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Then we're okay with it. John Kerry likes that system.
Oh, yeah. He loves it.
John Kerry likes the system that doesn't deal like he doesn't in reality.
Well, because they also realize that once you can get to the point of any of the private sector companies, corporations, and entire sectors losing control of their profits, not being able to make money, then the government's going to have to stand in, and this is where they wanted to go in major chunks of the economy, on healthcare, on energy. The liberals want to control language, they want to control capital and the means of production. There's a name for that. It's communism.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Looking forward to the vice presidential debate tomorrow because the thing is, even with Harris, we've seen her debate before the debate a month ago. We saw her in 2019.
Yeah.
So we've seen her around. Nobody has any idea about Walz. No one.
No.
I bet you, I wonder if you ask the general public, who is this person, and just put his name down, I wonder how many people would not know who he was.
Well, that's it. Number one, it's a vice presidential debate. How much public interest is there? Number two, anybody who would like to debate, be on the opposition end of debating J.D. Vance, please raise your hand, and I'm not raising my hand. I wouldn't want to be there.
Well, I think, though, there is more interest. And it's because he has really, except for the interview that he did with her, he really hasn't done any type of long-term interview where there are actually questions on issues and where somebody can disagree with him, as I'm sure will happen with Vance. And I think that's the interesting thing. Who are these people? Who is Harris? Who is Walz? And what will they do?
Well, and for me, a popcorn curiosity, because it goes beyond my obligatory part of the job kind of tuning into a vice presidential debate. I'm watching this because, again, nothing tells me that Tim Walz will be able to take on J.D. Vance.
Well, I also like the fact, what makes it of interest to me is, and I think this is why it's different, is whether it's her or him, you know that they're lying about all the top issues that they've co-opted from the MAGA.
Yeah.
Because she was MAGA on Friday big time.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's what's of interest. You've never had this type of flip.
Right.
This type of flip-flop where nobody believes you, though.
Right.
Nobody believes
Nobody's
you.
buying it.
Nobody does. Not even Democrats
Right.
buy it. And so to see them try to sell it again, which they'll try to do, I find entertaining.
Make some popcorn.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.